Before I get into what this video is about, I just want to thank all of you who showed support for my last 2 uploads. Whether you just watched, liked, or left a comment, it really means a lot to me. I appreciate how many of you showed interest in my little project, and I'm confident you'll enjoy what I have to show for it down the line. Now, on to a few things that have happened since uploading those 2 videos. We hit 20,000 subscribers, and to that I say, but in all seriousness, thank you so much. It's hard to even comprehend such a big number like that, so to make things a little easier on me, to the 5 people that are watching, I just want to say that I have a lot of video ideas, but please bear with me. Because it's just me, I want to make sure I'm happy and proud with every video, so I'll try uploading at least once a month for now. So don't forget about me too fast. And another thing that happened, Parblo reached out to me with a lovely offer. They sent me their Intangbo X7 drawing tablet to try out and review. Before getting into that though, I've been planning on making a video about my characters Jody and Mav and talking a little bit about their backstory through a Comic Speedpaint, so I thought, why not combine it with this review? I'll start with the unboxing first and go over its features, and then talk about my experience with it so far. So please enjoy this very cinematic footage with help from my cousin. Thank you. Thank you very much. The packaging really stands out to me, and I think it really pushes the idea of this being a beginner-friendly tablet. I would have loved something like this when I was starting digital art because I would have felt way less intimidated. I decided to go with the teal green version because the color reminds me of my character Timothy a lot with his hair color. Yeah, my choices are based off anything that slightly resembles my OCs. They also have a black and pink option, which I also really like. With everything, you also get a sticker sheet, fiber cloth, and a drawing glove, which I think is neat and could fit most people pretty well. There's also a quick install guide, the USB cable, a Type-C adapter for phones and tablets, and ye old pen, which doesn't need to be charged or need any batteries. They give you 8 more replacement nibs, with a pen case that you can also store them in. For even more storage, you can unscrew the top of the pen and place 3 more in there. For the next part, I tried removing the metal ring off the top of the pen, but I didn't notice that there was a little notch keeping it in place, and I had a little trouble with that.
Maybe it's a secret you know tell.
Hold on, no, it's because I'm like, Oh, you got that?
Yeah. I'm gonna cut.
Anyways, the metal ring helps take out the nib, which is honestly like the best nib removing experience I've had. Compared to whatever the heck Wacom has. No shade to Wacom, but seriously, it takes me like 5 minutes to try and get that thing out. That's about everything that comes in the box, so on to the next thing. Before I get into talking about my characters and the speed paint, I want to share what it was like using the Intangbo X7 for the first time. For context, I typically use on-screen tablets like my Cintiq and my iPad. The last time I worked with an off-screen tablet was back in high school when I first learned digital art on them, so using this definitely felt like I was going back to my roots. It took me about a day or 3 to get over the learning curve and relearn some hand-eye coordination, but after that, it was a pretty smooth experience. This tablet has a working space of 7.2 by 4.5 inches, so even though it's smaller than what I'm used to working with, I still got some good use out of it. I do want to mention, if you have 2 monitor screens, make sure the setting under the monitor mapping is set to built-in main. Just a little fun fact. I will also say that it took me around 10 minutes to set up, just because with Apple I had to fiddle around with the permission settings and whatnot, but I eventually figured it out. Might include a little tutorial at the end for Mac and Windows installation in case you get your hands on one. I brought out my laptop to also test it out, and it worked really well. This is what I needed when I was first starting out, and it's also a really great portable setup. Alright, just to get a few things out of the way, this was my first time learning how to use OBS because I never recorded a proper speed paint before, so apologies for the odd cropping at times. There was also moments where I thought OBS was recording, but it actually wasn't, so if you see jumps throughout the speed paint, I apologize, but rest assured, they aren't very frequent. Now on to what I'm drawing. If you're new here or have seen my first video, these are my characters Jody and Mav just as kids. Their dynamic is really important in my series Cypherglass, and Jody's relationship with Mav is crucial in her development as my main character. I'll say now that their relationship is completely platonic throughout the whole story. They grew up as childhood best friends and practically through time and certain events, adopted each other as siblings down the line. Jody takes an overly protective role towards Mav, often crossing boundaries under the belief that she knows what's best for him. This becomes more prominent as she subconsciously steps into a surrogate older sister role, especially after the loss of Mav's older sister when they were about this age in the comic, which is around 13. Jody's occasional overbearing nature towards Mav is pretty ironic considering he's actually a few months older than her, but with his personality, she tends to forget that. Growing up as an only child, Jody likely saw Mav as a brother long before he saw her as a sister. Jody does have her good moments in being a great comfort to Mav when he's not feeling his best. This comic captures one of those times where Jody shares advice her father gave her once to help Mav gain a better perspective and break out of his own head for a moment. Jody doesn't always have the best words or approach to comforting others, but her efforts are genuine, which people will pick up and, in a sense, does make them feel a little better. But anyways, to give a little more context to this scene, the two are getting ready for a basketball game and Mav is just having a little nervous breakdown about it. Side tangent, but this was inspired by a time I had a panic attack before a swim meet in high school. I can't exactly remember why, like if it was my first swim meet or something, but I just remember crying in the bathroom, really not wanting to do my event. I remember that a friend came in to comfort me, but we ended up both crying and breaking down, so... I mean, we didn't skip our event or anything, we still did it. Before drowning in the pool, we just wanted to drown in our tears. Anyways, in this comic, Jody holds herself together pretty well. No shade to my friend, I'm sure she tried her best. Anyways, would you believe me if I said that the only reason I even joined my high school swim team was because of the anime Free? Yeah, I was inspired for all the wrong reasons. Anyways, Jody and Mav are on a basketball team only because of their dads. They do play casually, but they never really wanted to take it seriously. So why not draw a little bonding moment about it? Outside of this lighthearted moment between the two, let's get into the deeper turn of events between Jody and Mav. Because I underestimated, or overestimated, how long this speed paint would be. It was a trip editing. Okay, anyways, before we get into the lore, I want to talk about my art process more at the end, but I will say 3D models help so much for comics. I've said my piece, thank you. Like I said before with Jody's overbearingness towards Mav, it starts to foster a sense of emotional dependence for him, especially after his own sister's passing, which I'll say is someone who Jody idolized from the moment she met her. Mav's older sister Jocelyn, who I have yet to draw a design for, really embraced Jody as if she was her own younger sibling akin to Mav. To give an idea of how young they were when they first met, I'd say Jody and Mav were about 7, Mav being older by a few months, and his sister being 11. I imagine Jody would stay at their house quite often as Jody's dad was at work and would pay Jocelyn to babysit. I don't think she'd care about the money though. She'd just be excited to finally have someone to play dress up with and play pretend. Things Mav just never got on board with. Mav would definitely hide in his room the first few chimes? Chimes is crazy. I'm trying not to edit this that much. The first few times Jody would go over. Mav's parents extended their home to Jody and her dad when they moved in across the street and noticed he needed some help. They definitely said, hey, we have 2 kids of our own, bring yours over. We have time for side tangents on this channel, but this reminds me I did have a next door neighbor that I would visit repeatedly. I remember getting on top of my trash can to yell her name to get her dad to come out, and I would ask if she could play, and I'd either go over to her house or she'd come over to mine, but very, very nostalgic memories. Anyways, yeah, Mav was too shy of a kid to really care about the kid across the street, but warmed up to her by hearing her laughs mixed in with his sister's that echoed throughout the house. Mav's sister Jocelyn, by simply existing in Jody's life as a confident, self-assured person, was someone Jody turned to as a model of self-acceptance, without realizing how much that mirrored her own emerging identity. Here's a little scenario of a Jocelyn and Jody bonding moment. Jody, around 11 years old, visits Mav's house. Jody and Mav are playing in the living room when Jocelyn walks in. She notices Jody's hair falling in her face as she plays and offers to help her tie it back. Jocelyn sits Jody down and goes to grab a brush and ribbon from her room. As she gently ties Jody's hair into a loose ponytail, she explains how she used to help Mav with his hair when he was little. Jody isn't used to this kind of catering, especially towards her hair. Jocelyn then says something like, "Your hair's so pretty, dead name here. Don't let anyone make you feel like you need to cut it." Jody beams at this comment, smiling, filled with pride. It's one of the first moments she feels seen for something she really cherishes about herself, which is her hair. Shifting the tone a bit, I imagine a moment after Jocelyn's passing where Jody tries to replicate the way Jocelyn used to tie her hair with just a ribbon. She'd get quickly frustrated as the ribbon keeps slipping out of her hair, a haunting reminder of Jocelyn's effortless grace and the void her absence leaves behind in Jody's life. Okay, taking a break from the Jody and Jocelyn dynamic, I'll get into Mav's dynamic with his actual sister. Before Jody was ever in the picture, Jocelyn, being the older sibling, had to take on a parental role in Mav's life. Their parents would get caught up in work a lot, so Jocelyn became both a source of nurturing but also discipline. Her warm demeanor was matched with strict authority at times. Mav would have admired her ability to handle so much, but also felt guilty for adding to her burden. Meanwhile, Jocelyn might have tried to shield Mav from the harsher realities of their life, giving him a sense of stability and security. Jocelyn would be a protective figure for Mav who teaches him resilience and values while still allowing him space to grow. Jocelyn even at times sacrifices her own time and needs to make sure Mav is cared for, subtly shaping his own understanding of love and loyalty. Her death would leave a significant void in Mav's life. Not only would he lose a sister, but also the person who partially raised him, leading to feelings of abandonment or a desire to just carry her legacy forward. Now, with the way Jody and Mav's dynamic moves forward after Jocelyn's passing is that Jody will often overextend herself for Mav, stepping into the role of a protector despite her own vulnerabilities. Jody and Mav's dynamic thrives on a foundation of mutual trust, where they lean on each other emotionally. The more I think about it, the more metaphorical it could have been if I had Jody and Mav be on a swim team, because then it would have the imagery of them diving into water, sort of showing the idea of confronting their fears and navigating challenges together. But as someone who was on a swim team, I just refuse to draw goggles and swim caps. They look that's too silly for me. But to that water metaphor, it would parallel how Mav processes his anxieties and how Jody strives to pull him out of those depths when he feels like he's drowning. Jody's role is not about having all the answers, but about being present and offering reassurance. As Mav wrestles with the loss of his sister and the realization that he needs to rely less on Jody, the relationship becomes a blend of bittersweet moments. While Mav feels like he's sinking under the weight of grief and self-doubt, Jody's support acts as a steadying force, even if her overbearing nature sometimes complicates things. Their bond is a mix of sorrow and resilience, showing how they're flawed yet have an unwavering loyalty to one another. Taking a brief intermission to talk about my drawing process for this comic, as you can see, I used 3D models to help me lay out specific angles I was looking for, and also just help with keeping my anatomy more consistent. You can also notice that I don't directly trace off the model, rather just use it as a blueprint for what goes where. These default models tend to bend in weird places, and the anatomy from the model alone doesn't translate all that well to actual drawings, so using what I do know about anatomy, I take a few educated guesses. As for my process with the background, I found it important to get a good establishing shot in the first page so that in later panels you can just see me direct light in certain ways to represent where the characters are. I did try drawing a hallway behind Jody in one of the panels, but ended up just drawing some light from the direction she was coming from instead. I think if you find yourself getting frustrated with a drawing or anything, just find a shortcut way to do it. But then you gotta also have it make sense. But then don't stress yourself too. Art tip: don't overthink it. That's a hot art tip. I think that also worked in my favor because this isn't a really intensive background. They're just under the stairwell, so if anything, I got lucky with that. I did initially have them planned to be underneath the bleachers, but then I was like, I have no idea how to draw underneath the bleachers. I don't have a reference. I've tried looking for references and nope, nothing is matching my idea, so I had to change to underneath the stairwell. Sometimes you gotta switch things up from your initial plans. While this comic isn't super dialogue heavy, I did find myself actually struggling to find the words for the message I wanted to show, specifically being told through 13-year-old Jody. Yeah, I had to do a lot of revisions on how I feel like she would say it. Needless to say, it took me quite a while to come up with the final script, which you can see quickly jotted down in some pages. Another thing that I like to get into is talking about the songs that I associate with specific characters and character dynamics, so I'll share some that remind me of Jody and Mav's relationship. Starting off with Fix You by Coldplay, which I'm actually seeing in concert next year. This song would capture Jody's efforts to be there for Mav, even if her actions don't perfectly address his needs. I think this would play out as Mav talking about the pressure he feels from his parents, which Jody doesn't fully understand since her family situation is different. She might interrupt him with advice like maybe you should just talk to them more instead of letting him express his frustration, leading to tension. Over time though, I think Jody would learn how to read Mav's cues a little better. In later conversations, she might bite her tongue more and let Mav unload without jumping in. This shift could show her growth in learning to balance her own instinct with what Mav actually needs. Another song that I like to associate them is Brother by Codaline, if that's how you pronounce it, which is pretty much the essence of their sibling-like bond. The song shows a sense of reliability and trust, which would mirror how Jody is always there to pull Mav out of his emotional quote-unquote drowning, even if she's not perfect at it. Her presence almost serves as a lifeline for Mav in moments of his grief and anxiety. The line, "If you were drowned at sea, I'd give you my lungs so you could breathe," would show Jody's willingness to overstep boundaries to protect Mav from emotional distress, even when it might not be what he wants or needs. It's almost as if she struggles to give Mav the time and space he needs to grieve, because allowing him to do so would force her to confront the reality of Jocelyn being gone. Another scenario of Jody's unhealthy coping mechanism would be stepping into the role Jocelyn once played for Mav. While her intentions come from a place of love, Jody doesn't fully grasp that Mav doesn't need someone to step into her shoes. Mav's parents might struggle with how to grieve their daughter and support Mav, so Jody could feel more compelled to step in. And in a way, she would feel like she failed Jocelyn, therefore overcompensating with Mav, becoming overbearing in a way to make up for her perceived shortcomings. I want my characters to be as realistic as possible in their behaviors, so with Jody, I want to give her the room to learn from her mistakes and grow as a person. I want to show that her flaws from being a kid to a young adult don't undermine her humanity, but rather enhance it. As for Mav, his goal would be to learn how to set boundaries between Jody and assert his independence without pushing her away entirely. Which, talking about what actually happens in the story, doesn't go very well. There's a lot that goes down between the two later on, which leads them to becoming more distant emotionally and physically. So, since we're here, I figured I can read the scene that I wrote of when Jody decides what her preferred name should be. For a little context, she'd be around 15. I'm gonna put on more of a storytelling voice for this, so bear with me, I have never done this before. Jody and her father are at Mav's house after the funeral, and she's sitting at their dining room table, glancing down at the cup of tea in her hands. She took too long to drink it that it no longer had the comforting warmth that she craved. It was more of a distraction now. Jody fumbled with the swirl of thoughts in her mind, searching for something to break the silence that froze the room. She often struggled to see the value in silence, especially in times like these, but the question she was about to ask would unknowingly bring healing not just to herself, but also Jocelyn's mom. Jody leans forward slightly, breaking the quiet as she directs her question to Jocelyn's mom, who sits across from her at the table. So, was Jocelyn the first name that you thought of when you had her? The mother, momentarily caught off guard by Jody's sudden question, pauses before answering with a genuine smile. Well, it was tough. We went through so many names, but nothing felt quite right until, well, you know how it goes. Jody glanced at her with a faint smile. Trying to keep the conversation going, she asks, "What made you land on Jocelyn?" The question more of a distraction than anything else. The mother, after another brief pause, responds with, "Well, I wanted something that felt strong and timeless. We had a lot of J names on the list. There was Juliana, Joanna, and then..." She pauses, the memory softening her voice a little bit more. "Jody, I almost chose that one. It just had a sweetness to it, but it never felt like her. Maybe it was too soft, too delicate." Jody froze for a moment, the name lingering in her thoughts. "Jody," she repeated softly, almost to herself. The sound of it felt different now. It resonated with something deeper, like hearing her own voice for the first time and recognizing it as her own. "She loved her name though," Jocelyn's mom continued. "She put life into it with that bashful attitude of hers." Jody nodded, her fingers tightening around the cup as she tried to hold back the rush of emotions. For a moment, she let herself go there, imagining what it might have been like if things were different, if her name had been Jody. And end scene. I hope you enjoyed that little snippet. I'd love to draw it out as a comic one day, but we'll see. I don't know exactly how I want to structure my comic cypherglass, but to keep myself from feeling stuck, I like drawing these kind of moments individually. It's much less daunting than having to see where it would fit in the complete story, and it keeps my creativity flowing without getting too backed up on logistics. I realized I haven't shared much about Jody's personal home life yet, so I thought it would be a good time to transition into that. I'll read this little excerpt I wrote, capturing a scene from the first few weeks when she and her dad were settling into the house across the street. The house was still littered with unpacked boxes for weeks, remnants of a life they left behind. Some were in stacked corners, other blocking doorways. Jody had only unpacked what she needed, though one day her dad handed her a little more than just a few boxes. The first few were her mom's belongings, such as clothes and shoes. Another one was of her favorite books and small trinkets. He handed them to her with a quiet, "Put these in your room," like it was the most natural thing in the world. She didn't question it, but the thought crossed her mind. Why my room? Why not his? But as she took the items away, she realized they were hers to carry now as much as they were his to let go. Jody found herself rummaging through one of the boxes, finding a small wooden piano inside. She carefully unpacks it, running her fingers over its chipped edges. Memories flood back of her mom teaching her how to play simple melodies. Her dad glances over as she holds it. "Still works?" he asks. Jody hesitates, then presses a key. A soft, hollow note fills the room. "It's a little off," she says, twisting the tuning peg gently. "Kind of like us," her dad replies with a weary smile. Jody gives him a look where she's clearly unamused with his joke. Do you think they'd let me take this to her so she can tune it herself? Jody asks as if she's mad at her mom for letting it get out of tune. Her dad pauses, rubbing the back of his neck. Don't think that's in the cards, little man. But hey, you can always ask her how. Bring that notebook of yours next time. Might be worth jotting down what she says. I'm actually writing these moments in real time now just to talk over the speed paint because I underestimated how much speed paint footage I had, so I don't want to leave you guys in the silence of just background music, so here's another moment I wrote, but this time between Jody and her dad. Yay! Jody searched through the kitchen drawers, frustrated that there were countless knives but no forks or spoons. The only other utensils being a few stray chopsticks from takeout. Sighing with defeat, she closes the kitchen drawers and stomps her way to the garage. She can tell what her dad is up to with the faint smell of metal filling the air. Dad, where did you put the forks and spoons? Jody yells, hoping her voice is heard through that bulky face helmet of his. He didn't immediately respond, too focused on his work. A few more sparks shot out, and then he slowly picked up the piece in his hands, inspecting it. When he spoke, his voice was muffled behind his helmet. Well, he said, lifting the metal object towards her. I was just getting creative with what we had left. He removed his helmet and brought her the metal bird sculpture that he just welded together. It was delicate but solid, perched up on a spoon handle. Why does it look burnt? She murmurs. That's just the color of... Never mind. What do you think though? It's like the bird that used to visit us back at the old place, right? We can hang it above your bed and it'll greet you every morning. Jody's dad says with the enthusiasm like he's selling her some product. And have it fall and smash my head in my sleep? No thanks. Guess that's one way to look at it, he laughs, shaking his head. I'll secure it to the wall really well. Wouldn't want to be responsible for you taking a metal beak to the head. Jody responds with, well, can you at least make me something I can eat my cereal with? Her dad awkwardly laughs, but responds with, let's just take a trip to the store for that instead. So yeah, Jody's dad is a welder and he continues his work at home a lot, but Jody doesn't care much for his hobby despite the numerous attempts he's made to gain her interest. I think deep down, Jody's dad would struggle how to address her emotional needs, leaving them mostly unacknowledged. This leads to Jody developing her own way of self-regulating and handling her own emotions. That's about all I have to share for Jody and Mav, at least for now. I've been cooking up their backstory for about a year now, but just now actually starting to refine the details. I have many more relationship dynamics that I would love to get into, and I hope I just don't get too caught up because I have many characters right now where I'm just trying to... My brain is doing overtime when I'm not asking it to, but it's very fun to think about. Another thing also is that I tried Googling what a welded bird would look like, and the only welding experience I ever had was back in high school when there was like this little STEM lab where we were allowed to like experiment with different things, and they had a welding station, and I never tried it, but I did look at it. But I did find a picture on Google of this cute little, I don't even know if it's welded, but in my version it's welded, of this little metal bird made out of forks and spoons, which is exactly what I envisioned for what Jody's dad made for her. Yeah, it's just one of those things where you gotta research into something that you never really looked into before for the sake of your OC's plot and whatnot. But fun fact, I guess, Jody's dad actually gets her interest because he eventually gets into stained glass making, and that finally catches her eye. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that comes out with her mom later down the line, and in general, their backstory's purpose is for the sake of explaining how they became what they are, which is a 7 deadly sin. But that is lore for an entirely different video. And oh my god, I'm already breaking my brain on how I'm gonna script that, because yes, I really thought I could speak with... I'm speaking off script now, but it's so difficult to... Like, I really need to sit down and write, which I just thought I could just sit down and talk into the mic, and yeah, no, I need weeks of preparation. I need to refine my script. I need to make sure my words are clear and that I'm properly communicating what I mean through my characters. It's been over a month. I've been working on this video for like a month and some weeks, and I am barely seeing the light at the end of the tunnel right now. It's December 7th. I want to post this whatever day Monday is, so hopefully I achieve that. Sorry, am I just talking to fill up time for the rest of the speed paint? What? Of course not. Why would you think that? That's crazy. Oh my god, what? No, but seriously, do not expect these like regular 30-minute long, unless I really got like a heavy topic to talk about. And by heavy, I mean like really explainy, detail heavy. Then you'll see another 30-minute-ish long video from me. But other than that, I'm trying to keep it below 20 minutes maximum for videos like these. But anyways, I hope that this video, like if you're drawing, I hope that you enjoyed listening to my little rambles. I always love listening to like little speed paint videos while I draw. So if my video can be that to someone, then success, mission accomplished. Sorry, do you hear that airplane right now? Oh my god, the way that I had to wait so many times for my dogs to stop barking and airplanes from flying over my home, it's madness. Another thing about recording this is the time lapse, and awesome. I'm not re-recording this. That was my dog. I had to record this time lapse and make it sped up to the fastest speed possible because this would have been a 3-hour long video otherwise. So, yep. Here's a quick look at all the final pages. Now, if you stayed this long, just know you have my undying appreciation. Thank you so much to Parblo for sending me their tablet to review. And a little fun fact, I use this tablet to animate my little guy in the corner. If you're looking for a solid off-screen tablet, especially as a beginner exploring digital art, I think it's a really great option to start with. I highly recommend giving it a try. Before I go, I do want to give a brief walkthrough on how to install the Intangbo X7 driver on Mac because I did run into a few things. Once you go and download the specific driver from their site, you'll be taken to the little Google Drive link where you'll just press download and then download anyway. Now for Mac, I got a warning that said it could not open that file, so you just go to privacy and security and then press open anyway. You'll press open anyway again and then it should work. One last thing, I did get a few mentions about making a Discord server, so let me know if you guys would find that interesting and I'll eventually give out updates too if I make it happen. Okay, now thank you for sticking through my rambles and I will see you in my next lecture. You better show up on time. Bye.